This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. After saying that, my wife passed away, leaving me in a dilemma. Should I marry my sister-in-law right after my wife had just left? No, I can't do this. My wife's death had already left me in unbearable pain. Yet Serena, my sister-in-law, kept pushing me. Brother-in-law, my sister is gone now. You should fulfill her wish and marry me, completing her final wish. Haley's wish was to have a healthy, adorable child, the symbol of our love. But after being married for many years, we never got around to it due to our busy work schedule. Now, Serena wanted to help Haley fulfill this wish by having a child with me as soon as possible. Brother-in-law, look at this dress. It's so pretty. My sister always loved wearing it for you. Do you like it when I wear it? Serena pulled out Haley's cheongsam and put it on her seductive body, spinning happily in front of me. She resembled Haley quite a lot. They were both beautiful. Perhaps because Serena was younger, her body was more delicate, her skin full of collagen, smooth and soft. Haley's favorite dress was this one with a slit at the bottom and a hollowed-out neckline. Through the hollow, I could faintly see her fair skin. With her love for fitness, her figure was slim and attractive. She moved gracefully in front of me like a snake, but I couldn't help frowning, as the expression on Serena's face was far too disturbing. She seemed so happy, not at all affected by Haley's death, as if she was eagerly looking forward to a bright future. Yet, I couldn't really blame her. Serena, I need some time to think about this. Can you give me a moment? It had only been 3 days since my wife passed, and her memorial wasn't even over yet. I didn't want to be branded as heartless, but Serena, her eyes flashing, sat on my lap with a smile, gently stroking my cheek, mimicking Haley's tone as she whispered, "Rocky, do you want us to make a baby right here?" Her lips were full and red, murmuring indecent words. The air around us grew thick with tension and hormones. Meanwhile, my wife's photo was still on display at the altar. "I really can't right now, Serena. Please stop." I took a deep breath, quickly pressing down the cheongsam on her leg, but Serena let out a soft moan, then burst into laughter. "Brother-in-law, what's wrong? Am I not acting like my sister? Or do you just not feel anything? If it were her, you'd be in a hurry to drag me into the bedroom." She teasingly tapped my forehead with her delicate finger before sauntering back to the bedroom, swaying her hips. I sighed deeply, muttering, "Not at all." My wife Haley was elegant and graceful. Even with all her charm, she was like a classical beauty. But Serena was entirely different. She was sultry and seductive, her eyes mesmerizing like a little temptress. They were two entirely different types of women. I didn't scold her, not because I was indulging her, but because it was my wife's final wish. She made me promise 3 things. First, I must take good care of Serena. Second, I must marry her, whether I love her or not. Third, no matter what happens, I must never blame her. So, I had to keep my promises. Serena and Haley were sisters, but Serena had no real affection for Haley. Serena was Haley's long-lost sister, and they had only been reunited for 6 months. 6 months isn't enough time to build a bond, especially since Serena returned with deep resentment. As my wife explained, when Serena was born, their family was very poor, and her mother wanted a son. Unable to raise her, they gave Serena away. Unfortunately, Serena's luck was bad. Her adoptive family had their own child a few years later and tried to send Serena back. Serena's mother refused to take her back, and the adoptive family, being unkind, left Serena behind and ran off. It was winter, freezing cold, and Serena was left crying outside. Eventually, her mother took her in, only to abandon her again at the door of the adoptive family's house. Serena was old enough to remember everything, and it scarred her deeply. Haley told me, "Rocky, we owe Serena too much. You must take care of her, no matter what she wants. As her sister, I have to make it up to her." Haley was so kind. Ever since Serena returned, she gave her everything she could, but I could see that Serena had a strong desire for revenge and a great sense of possession. She wanted everything, including her sister's husband. It was a possessiveness driven by obsession. Thinking about it all made me exhausted, and soon I drifted off to sleep. After a while, I dreamt that Haley was still alive, and everything was normal. She was wearing her favorite cheongsam, lying softly on the bed, calling to me, "Rocky, wake up, I love you." She smelled sweet, cupping my face and kissing me. The kisses rained down like droplets, and I felt myself teetering between dreams and reality, unable to tell which was which. But seeing my wife again made me so happy. Ruyan. At first, I felt a stirring in my body, as if I had had tasted a long-forgotten sweetness. The stirrings grew stronger. I joyfully pulled her into my arms, her sweet scent surrounding me. I murmured my wife's name, not realizing that her reactions were completely different from Haley's. That's when I finally woke up. This wasn't Haley, this was Serena. Haley was a modest woman, shy and reserved. But this time, Serena was in full control. I thought it was my wife, but it was my sister-in-law. I could only push her away. Serena, stop this. But I couldn't show my anger because of the promises I made. Serena, sensing I had figured her out, put on a pitiful expression. What's wrong? You weren't upset a moment ago. Tell me, did you almost mistake me for your wife? Serena lay next to me like a kitten, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. I was so frustrated that I raised my voice. Serena, I promised your sister I would marry you, but can we wait until the mourning period is over? Hearing this made Serena upset. She had a fiery temper and hated being disappointed. Everything's always about my sister. Am I not younger than her? There must be something wrong with you. You couldn't keep your hands off if it were anyone else tonight. You're so cold. Her words were crude, likely due to her lack of upbringing. Angry, she yanked the blanket off the bed and pinched me hard, leaving bruises on my body before storming off, satisfied. Rocky, if you miss me, come find me. Tonight, I'm your wife. Serena smiled playfully, giving me a flirtatious look before heading back to the other room. Day 5. Today was my wife's memorial service. Her friends and family came to pay their respects. Serena's mother collapsed in front of the altar, wailing in sorrow. Serena, as Haley's sister, knelt by the coffin, dressed in white. But she couldn't behave herself, even in front of everyone. She kept winking at me, occasionally touching up her makeup and blowing kisses my way. I knew Serena was doing it on purpose, but it really unsettled me, especially given the occasion. I pretended not to notice and closed my eyes. Oh, Rocky, you've been busy all day. Have some water and rest. As someone approached, Serena stood up and offered me a bottle of water. When I refused, she tried to feed it to me, wrapping her arm around my neck. Come on, drink it. Otherwise, your sister in heaven will feel sorry for you. I'm only doing this for your own good, Rocky. Open your mouth, will you? Serena brushed her fingers across my lips, trying to pry them open and put the bottle to my mouth. She's been staying at my house these past few days. To be honest, I've grown numb to her behavior. But this scene didn't go unnoticed by Haley's attending physician, who had come to pay his respects. Wow, Rocky, you work fast, huh? Your wife's barely gone, and you've already got her sister under your thumb. No wonder, no wonder. The doctor, who was also my high school classmate, had come to burn incense as a gesture of friendship. When he saw Serena flirting with me, he was outraged and began throwing sarcastic remarks. I was stunned. No wonder what? I felt like there was a hidden meaning behind his words. No wonder what? What else? The woman's dead now. So, when's the wedding with your sister-in-law? He said this right in front of my wife's altar, and although I wasn't angry, I tried to keep my promise. Soon, I suppose. I had already made that promise. You, Rocky, you're unbelievable. I've never seen anyone like you. When I saw him about to leave, I quickly grabbed his arm. Stay for lunch. Let me explain. Forget it. He brushed my hand away, and at that moment, Serena's mother let out a heart-wrenching cry and fainted to the floor. Instinctively, my classmate and I rushed over to help. Serena's mother clung to my hand, gasping for air. Rocky, they say a son-in-law is like a half-son. Haley was my only daughter, and now she's gone. You can't abandon me. Tears filled my eyes as well. Mom, don't say that. Of course, I'll take care of you. Plus, you still have another daughter. I plan to marry Serena. I'll remain your son-in-law. Upon hearing this, Serena giggled. Her mother, however, looked at her as if she'd seen a ghost and hurriedly left, as though she was terrified of Serena. I didn't understand. If she was reunited with her daughter after all these years, why was she so afraid of her? My classmate also started to leave. I chased after him to the door. Hey, listen to me. It's not what you think. Don't bother explaining, Rocky. It's no use. I now understand why Haley's condition deteriorated so quickly when it shouldn't have. I was shocked. What do you mean it's my fault? Haley's illness, she could have lasted another 2 years, but she died in just 6 months. My treatment was fine. It had to be something emotional, something between you and her sister, that must have caused her mental state to deteriorate, accelerating the disease. I was stunned. There was nothing between me and Serena back then. If her condition worsened due to emotional distress, it had to be for some other reason. As I watched my old classmate walk away, I felt completely lost. Suddenly, I remembered how Haley had seemed deeply troubled over the past 6 months. months, as if there was a weight she couldn't shake off. But she always put on a brave face in front of me. Could it be? Did her early passing really have something to do with her emotions? But what exactly caused it? This question planted a seed of doubt in my heart, a burning desire to uncover what had made Haley so unhappy. Day 7. 2 days later, it was Haley's 7th day, a critical time in our mourning traditions. My classmates' words echoed in my mind, and I found myself obsessing over the cause of Haley's emotional distress. The more I thought about it, the more anxious I became. I went over everything in my head. Haley and I had always been harmonious. Even after she fell ill, I stood by her side like always. We were soulmates in every sense, so it couldn't have been something between us. It must be Serena. Suddenly, I blamed Serena for all of it. Haley had suffered from kidney failure. I'm no doctor, so I don't know if stress can worsen that condition, but I clearly remember Serena's sharp words and actions that upset Haley during her illness. Every time I found Haley secretly crying, she'd tell me, "Rocky, I don't blame Serena at all. She's my sister, and she's suffered so much. Even if she goes too far, I'll never hold it against her." Haley's words had always reassured me. Since it was between her and Serena, I hadn't intervened. But now, in retrospect, I realized Serena's actions must have affected Haley's emotions, no matter what my wife said. This realization filled me with anger. At midnight, following the tradition, I went out to burn offerings for Haley and asked Serena to join me. Serena was lounging in her room, playing on her phone. Reluctantly, she came out. "What do I need to prepare?" Her words sent a chill through me. "You forgot to prepare the 6 small dishes for the memorial, didn't you?" According to tradition, we needed to prepare some offerings. I had asked Serena to help, and she had agreed. But now, she acted clueless. "Oh, I forgot." Serena's indifferent tone made me furious, and I couldn't help but suspect she had done it on purpose. "Serena, you tormented Haley while she was alive, and now you want to torment her even in death? She was your sister. Even if she was sent away, that wasn't her fault." My anger made me forget about Haley's dying request. Serena's eyes flared with anger. "I really forgot. Besides, it's just some dishes. I'll cut them now. Why are you yelling at me? You. Haley was always so good to you. You ungrateful snake." Blinded by rage, I insulted Serena for the first time. Her eyes filled with tears. She clenched her teeth and shouted, "When was she ever good to me? You have no idea what I've been through. How dare you say such things to me?" She followed me into the kitchen, grabbing my shirt and demanding answers. I didn't respond. Serena trembled with anger. "Have you forgotten the promises you made to my sister? Fine, just fine." She let out a bitter laugh, turned, and ran out of the house in tears. As Serena stormed off, I felt a bit calmer, but I thought maybe this incident would finally lead her to change. After preparing the dishes, I burned the offerings for Haley outside and returned to find the house unexpectedly plunged into darkness. Power outages hadn't happened in a while, so I didn't have any spare candles around, but I remembered that Haley used to keep a small flashlight in her dresser. I rummaged through her belongings for a while and eventually found the flashlight. "What's this?" At the same time, I stumbled upon Haley's diary. She had always kept one, but with everything that had happened, I hadn't had the chance to go through her things properly. Now, with nothing else to do and feeling restless, I sat down, using the flashlight to read her diary. Her familiar handwriting brought back memories, and I smiled at the recollections of our life together. Haley had mostly written about our daily lives, where we ate, the gifts I gave her, and her positive outlook on her illness. But as I flipped through the pages, a tear-stained entry caught my eye, full of smudges and faded ink. The opening words, written in her delicate script, sent chills down my spine. I hate so much what I did to Serena that day. This is all my fault. I'm so sorry, Serena." I was shocked. I read carefully, and the more I read, the more my hair stood on end. I had never imagined such things had happened to Serena. She leaned against the window, listening to Serena's heart-wrenching cries outside. For Haley, this sister, of whom she had little memory, was a stranger. "Mom, who is that child outside?" Serena's mother remained silent with a cold expression. After a while, perhaps irritated, she called Haley over. "That wild girl outside. No one knows where she's from. Go and chase her away, okay?" A look of surprise flashed across Haley's face. For a 7-year-old, this was a daunting task. Serena's mother led Haley outside. Serena's little face was flushed from the cold. "Go away. This is my house, leave." Haley summoned her courage, stepped forward, and, at her mother's urging, gave Serena a hard shove. Serena fell into the snow, her crying becoming even more pitiful. Their first meeting as sisters began this way. Seeing Serena so pitiful after being pushed down, Haley hesitated, looking back at her mother, unsure if what she did was right. "Haley, go slap her, hit her, and she'll never come back to bother us again." From Haley's angle, her mother mother's face looked slightly menacing, and she pushed Haley forward. And so, Haley nervously walked toward Serena, looking back every few steps. That slap, I can only guess, probably happened. Haley had always obeyed her mother, and I believe that slap took root deep in both sisters' hearts. Serena, given her state at the time, would surely remember. As for Haley, it became an unshakable nightmare in her life. Haley, I never imagined how much I hurt my sister in that situation. I hate myself so much. After all, she's my sister. Blood is thicker than water. I slowly closed the diary, finally understanding how Haley had faced Serena after they reunited. Haley had always been kind and gentle, someone who couldn't even bear to step on an ant. Yet, in her heart, she harbored such deep guilt. At the same time, I found myself reevaluating Serena. Could it be that you carried this guilt, hoping I would take care of her? Haley's final words resurfaced in my mind. No matter what, I indeed owed it to my wife to fulfill her wish of caring for Serena. Suddenly, I realized Serena had been out for quite a while. It was almost 3 a.m. As I looked at the dark night outside, a sense of fear crept in. There was a citywide blackout. I didn't know if Serena was safe out there. Accidents often happen in an instant, don't they? Serena, where are you? Let me come pick you up. On the phone, the background music was loud and chaotic. I'm at a nightclub. If you come pick me up, I'll go home with you. Serena's voice was clearly slurred. She was obviously drunk. Fearing for her safety, I hurried to the club to get her. Although the power was out, the nightclub had a backup generator. Outside, the world seemed entirely detached from the lively scene within. Pushing through the drunken crowd, I saw Serena being harassed. A group of sleazy men were pulling at her. Though she tried to push them away, they surrounded her again. I shoved through the people in front of me and stormed over. Get lost. Days of exhaustion had taken a toll on me. My disheveled hair hung over bloodshot eyes, and even my voice sounded hoarse. Brother-in-law. Serena collapsed into my arms. The men, upon hearing her call me that, decided to back off and vanished into the crowd. Are you worried about me? Serena, 9/10 drunk, still managed to show a trace of flirtation. She wrapped her arms around me, resting her head on my chest. Her fingers, like small, agile snakes, slid across my chest. Let's go home. I tried to pull Serena away, tired and eager to leave. But as I moved, I felt her resistance. I don't want to go home. What do you want then? Unable to suppress my frustration, I almost scolded her for her stubbornness. But Serena let go of my hand and sat back down. I don't want to go back to your house. If I do, you'll just give me that cold look again. She seemed heartbroken, like a wounded lover. At that moment, I remembered Haley's diary, and with a sigh, I sat back down to accompany her. How about I have a drink with you? She brightened up. That sounds great. A few glasses of liquor later, my mind began to relax temporarily. Brother-in-law, you were so good to my sister. I really like you because I've never met a man as kind as you. Just because of my temper, I rarely get angry. Your sister asked me to take care of you before she passed away. She nodded. I told her to. She told you to look after me for life. But why do you like me just for that? Is it because you want everything your sister had? Do you think what was hers should be yours too? That's not love. It's possessiveness. Serena, ever bold, didn't argue with me but simply stood up and sat on my lap. She wrapped her arms around my neck. You don't need to worry about it. I like you because you're kind. Who told me to grow up lacking love? Her soft, whispering voice echoed in my ears, slipping into my mind. The alcohol hadn't dulled my reason, but it made my body feel even more numb. Serena's tenderness seemed to awaken distant memories. Rocky, you promised to take good care of my sister. Do you still remember that vow? Serena, in that moment, bore a striking resemblance to my late wife. For a second, I couldn't distinguish who was in front of me, especially since Serena's tear-streaked face mirrored Haley's so well. Overwhelmed by grief, I finally lost control. On the way home, Serena and I exchanged glances, our breaths heavy. Then suddenly, there was a loud thud. Serena's hand knocked over my wife's memorial photo, which fell face down on the table. I froze for a moment, pulling away from Serena. Did you really want to do that with me? Serena wiped her mouth, smiling slyly at me. Despite everything, something had already crossed a line between us. Now that we both calmed down, the tension between us seemed to dissipate. Serena, I'll fulfill your sister's wish. I'll take good care of you. You can rest assured about that. All right then, brother-in-law. You should take a break for a while. Serena suddenly seemed more understanding, as if she had sobered up. But I knew some of what I said must have unsettled her, especially because I kept emphasizing that I was only doing this to fulfill my late wife's last wish. After all, who would be content living in the shadow of someone else? At the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that Serena wanted to take everything that had once belonged to her sister. I wasn't sure if Serena even understood her own heart. Waking up, my body still feels exhausted. With some spare time, I took out my wife's diary to read again. I read slowly, carefully going through each word, sometimes getting lost in memories. Continuing from where I left off yesterday, it was clear that my wife's mood had improved significantly for a while. But as I kept reading, I noticed that what she wrote started to feel off. According to the dates, it was right during the period when her condition rapidly deteriorated. My wife repeatedly mentioned one sentence in her diary: "We cannot let Serena be harmed again. I owe Serena too much with my mother. This is not right. Therefore, from now on, nothing can go in the wrong direction." A simple sentence that left me confused. My wife had always been introverted. She didn't like to talk about her feelings, so she usually vented in her diary. But even in her diary, she struggled to articulate her thoughts clearly. Everything felt like a riddle. Knowing her time was short, she was probably afraid this diary would see the light of day again. I felt distressed. The notion of not letting Serena be harmed again surely wasn't about that slap from years ago. If there were no answers to follow, it would just be an eternal mystery. I was about to continue when Serena's mother called. "Rocky, my heart feels uncomfortable. Can you take me to the hospital?" "Mom, I'll be right over." I quickly got dressed, drove to Serena's mother's house, and asked an old classmate to help me get in to see the doctor. Thankfully, it was just heartbreak and nothing serious. Serena's mother always thought she had only one daughter. After Serena came back, she often didn't like Serena's personality. Crying, she said, "My daughter is gone, leaving me all alone. You can treat me like your mother today, but what about tomorrow? You will need your own family." I took her back home, listening to her indirect hints. "Haley was definitely most worried about you. I will always take care of you." Serena's mother was quite scheming. She played the emotional card, trying to morally bind me, and I knew it all too well, but I had never thought about not caring for her in the future. Since I had planned to do so all along, I wouldn't mind her little tricks. To reassure her, I also brought up the matter with Serena. "Mom, you know Haley was most concerned about two people, you and Serena. She wanted me to marry Serena, who is also your daughter. This way, I can always take care of you." I thought this might be the answer that would reassure her the most. But who would have thought at that moment Serena's mother turned furious? "No, you absolutely cannot marry Serena." Her tone was extremely intense, and she even smashed her cup on the floor. "Rocky, can you have a mind of your own? Just because my daughter told you to marry her, you will? Serena's character is not good, and I won't allow it." "Mom," I was shocked, completely not expecting her to say that. Serena's mother had always thought only of herself. It was obvious she just didn't want me to have anything to do with Serena. She wanted to quickly distance herself from Serena, but I just couldn't understand. Wasn't Serena the only family left in the world? No matter how bad the relationship was, who could compare to Serena? I was at a loss, and when I saw Serena's mother collapse onto the bed crying, I didn't dare to say more. "Mom, drink some water. I'll leave now." Seeing her gradually calm down, I finally stood up to leave. I needed to clear my head, so I went to my wife's grave. "Do you really want me to marry Serena? That girl may not truly love me." I still doubted that Serena's feelings were just an extreme possessiveness. I couldn't feel when she started to like me. Did she only like my character because she saw how good I was to my wife? Just as Serena said, was it simply because she lacked love? My wife couldn't give me any hints, but standing before her allowed me to calm down and reflect on the past. Half a year ago, Serena was suddenly recognized and brought back, as her adoptive parents treated her poorly. At that time, my wife was already sick. When Serena came back, we hosted a few dinners for her, during which Serena's mother would sometimes feign concern, then criticize her behavior. A few times, she even scolded her adoptive parents for not raising her well, saying they hadn't nurtured a proper lady. Given Serena's temperament, there would have been a big fight. I was the one who intervened and said a lot of good things. Could it be that Serena mistakenly thought I was interested in her? Perhaps I had found a clue. Driving home, Serena imitated her sister and cooked dinner. However, she didn't ask a single thing about her mother's condition. "Brother-in-law, how's the food I made? How does it compare to my sister's?" I was a bit angry. Why compare with her sister? But soon, I remembered my wife's request to be more understanding of Serena. "Mom isn't feeling well. She had a fight with me today and refused to talk. Don't you want to check on her and bring her some food?" "I don't care. What does her life or death have to do with me?" Serena's words terrified me. To say such things was so cold-blooded. "She is your mother. What about my mother? She gave birth to me, abandoned me, and now calls me back when she needs something?" Serena seemed agitated, as if I had stepped on her tail, but she quickly composed herself, trying hard to maintain our relationship. "Then tell me, why did you fight?" "I mentioned wanting to marry you, and she strongly opposed." I looked up at Serena, wanting to see her reaction. "That's to be expected. She's afraid I'll turn you against her. This hit the nail on the head. These two had an estranged relationship. Serena's mother probably really feared Serena would whisper in my ear against her. It seemed that only Serena understood her mother. Are you really going to keep it like this? Since you have recognized each other, why not live like a family together? I patiently tried to help Haley mediate their mother-daughter relationship. Serena rested her chin on her hand, looking at me. In this house, only brother-in-law is nice to me. Her eyes sparkled. What about your sister? Not nice. I asked directly, and Serena replied succinctly. I fell silent. I'm not hungry. You eat first. Back in the room, I felt sad. Haley cared for Serena, yet Serena spoke ill of her sister. Could it be true what Serena's mother said, that Serena is an ungrateful wolf? In an instant, my fragile nerves erupted. Haley, do you know how Serena evaluates you? I couldn't contain my anger any longer. Serena, do you dare speak ill of her in front of your sister's portrait? You say you like me, and your sister told me to marry you before she died. Now that she's gone, are you happy? I didn't. Serena put down her chopsticks, standing up in shock. When did I ever wish for her to die? Then you said you liked me when she was alive. Were you trying to drive her mad? I was sure that given Serena's character, she would say something like that. Of course, everything still lacked evidence. Who knew? Serena silently nodded. Yes, I told her myself, and it was before she died. Are you trying to blame my sister's death on me? She admitted it readily. Yes, my classmate is your sister's doctor. He said Haley's death was partly related to her emotions. How do you think that relates to you? Serena froze. I didn't expect you to see me this way. Your eyes are filled with disgust. After saying that, Serena dropped her chopsticks and quickly ran back to her room. She refused to leave, and I didn't chase her away. She could go, and I wouldn't stop her. In any case, I did feel some resentment. In my dream, I saw my deceased wife again. Haley asked me about the situation at home, and she also inquired about Serena, asking if I had taken good care of her. I woke up suddenly. I felt as if she was blaming me through the dream, or perhaps it was due to the immense pressure I was under. I glanced at the time. It was just past 5 in the morning. With a tense expression, I stepped outside without saying a word, but thankfully, Serena was still there. If she had been driven away by my anger, it would have gone against my wife's dying wish. My late wife had already been buried, and the company had cautiously inquired about my condition. I had been responsible for many important tasks and didn't want to be with Serena all day, so I decided to return to work to seek some peace. Serena came out with red eyes. Brother-in-law, I apologize for what happened yesterday. I shouldn't have said those things about my sister. I felt much calmer. I'm sorry too, Serena. I was impulsive, but I really didn't mean to wish my sister dead. On the contrary, I hope she gets better. Serena couldn't help but add a few more words. I found it hard to believe, but I still nodded. I understand. On the way to the company, I kept thinking about the relationship between Serena and Haley. It wasn't as bad as I had imagined. From the very beginning, Haley had been very kind to Serena, so Serena didn't harbor as much hostility. Sometimes they would laugh and chat together. From the initial awkwardness to naturalness, Serena had indeed improved over time. However, during the early stages of deterioration, it seemed Serena had quarreled with Haley, and whenever she saw Haley, she would get very angry. From that point on, their meetings had decreased, but Serena still came to visit Haley. I was unsure if something had been said during that time. That was too extreme. On my first day back to work, no one disturbed me. I was still in the phase of sorting through my emotions. In the evening, I returned home to find the lights off, and it seemed very quiet. I shouted loudly, "Serena!" In my voice, there was a hint of urgency. I was afraid something had happened to Serena and I wouldn't be able to explain to my late wife, perhaps mixed with a lot of concern. A cry suddenly echoed from the room. Following the sound, I saw Serena squatting in the corner, hugging her knees. I thought when I came back, I would have family. How did it end up like this? In the darkness, she cried sorrowfully, like a little lost child without a home. At that moment, I realized that pain was mutual. Wherever there was harm, there could be no escape. "Serena, don't cry." I quickly went over and hugged her, offering her a bit of comfort in my embrace. Serena clung to my shoulder like a child. I never wanted to wish her dead. It's not my fault. Brother-in-law, when I spoke to my sister, she specifically asked me. I didn't know it would turn out like this. I like you because no one has ever been this good to me, and no one has ever defended me. My mother scolded me, and you and my sister helped me. You both are good people, and you're so gentle. Looking back, my sister never forced me. Her words were disjointed, and her emotions were unstable. When she mentioned that her sister had never pressured her, I suddenly recalled things from my childhood. She didn't do it on purpose. She felt guilty. When she slapped you, she didn't understand anything. She told you? Serena's body trembled. It took me a while to decide to clarify this misunderstanding. I mentioned it. She wanted me to apologize to you. She felt guilty for this all her life. With a sudden cry, Serena burst into tears. The phone rang. It's me. Serena's mother is at the hospital, complaining of chest pain. Hurry. A classmate called, saying that Serena's mother had called the neighbor to help her call for an ambulance. When she was taken away, I heard that her condition was okay, but once she got to the hospital, she began to ramble on about her last wishes. I was quite worried. Serena, let's go see your mom. It seems like things aren't looking good. Okay. Serena wiped her tears and obediently agreed. I immediately drove Serena to the hospital. When we arrived, my classmate was waiting for me at the door of the ward. The old lady is awake. The recent tests weren't too serious. You can go in, but don't excite the patient. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief and took Serena inside. I knew this was Serena's mother's tactic. Whenever things didn't go her way, she would feign illness to draw us closer. As I stepped into the ward, Serena hesitated. You go in. I don't want to go. She doesn't like me. That's your mom. Since your sister is gone, you're her only daughter. How could she not like you? This was a chance to ease their relationship. Serena bit her lip and took a step forward with me. When Serena's mother saw her, she immediately yelled weakly, "Get out!" Serena was startled and turned to leave. But when she saw me, Serena's mother didn't show any obvious rejection. Mom, I walked over, feeling anxious. Serena just came to see you and care about you. Why did you bring her here? Serena's mother clutched her chest tightly, and her complexion suddenly changed. Her face turned pale. She had no major issues, but now it seemed like she had suddenly developed some. I didn't dare say anything more. Now, every time Serena's mother saw her, she looked increasingly pained. Rocky, hurry. Tell her to leave. I don't want to see her. Tell her to go far away, as far as possible. This shocked me as well. The door was open, and Serena could hear everything outside clearly. Why do you have such a strong prejudice against Serena? Don't be like this, Mom. As I tried to persuade her, Serena's mother seemed to be completely out of control. She gripped my hand tightly and said with all her strength, Rocky, you don't know. Serena is a harbinger of death. I kicked her out since she was little. How could she treat me well? Why did you bring her back? It was for my daughter. Haley needed a kidney. If we could just switch, it would be fine. That wretched girl, she wouldn't agree. She came back to take revenge. She wants to see our family destroyed. Mom. I quickly pressed the emergency button. Serena stood at the door, her expression complex. Serena's mother kept staring at Serena, and slowly, her hand fell down. She passed away. I gasped, unable to calm down. The last words of Serena's mother left my mind in a brief state of chaos. Honestly, I never expected her intention to be. She brought Serena home just to get a kidney for Haley. She had mentioned that if Serena didn't agree, it meant she had brought it up before. Serena said her sister didn't pressure her. I didn't know how to face this intricate relationship. Serena's mother's funeral was relatively simple. After all, her friends were all old too. However, I didn't treat it lightly. I organized everything with seriousness. In the end, she couldn't have imagined that it was Serena who draped the mourning clothes on her. By the time I returned from the funeral home, it was already evening. Brother-in-law, you must be tired. Get some rest. You should go to bed early too. We both looked exhausted. Back in the room, I couldn't fall asleep. People always have selfish motives. Haley needed a kidney, and coincidentally, Serena had one. Serena's mother's actions cannot be described as utterly malicious, but they were definitely not good either. Yet Serena still refused. I felt quite sad. If only she had. Holding my wife's photo, I placed it heavily on the bedside table and opened my wife's diary. There were only a few pages left, and I wanted to finish reading. Haley's diary. I absolutely cannot agree to what my mother said. Serena doesn't owe us anything. How can we continue to harm her like this? I refused, but Serena thought I meant the same. It was only natural for her to be angry. We were in the wrong, but today she came to find me. I asked her if she hated me, and she said she did, but now she didn't anymore. She even said she envied my life and liked having a gentle brother-in-law like me. I knew she lacked care, and Rocky was precisely that, so let Rocky take care of Serena for me. Otherwise, Rocky wouldn't have remarried. The decision I made had nothing to do with Serena. It was my choice. I was already sick, and even if I changed kidneys, I might not live happily, and I knew my own body well. The chances of survival were very slim. Fortunately, Serena helped me untangle my feelings, so I could leave without guilt. I wished to live, but I couldn't. I wanted Serena to live well in my place, to live healthily and happily. Rocky, if you ever see this, please cherish a sister as kind as I am. Big tears fell down. In the last page of the diary, there was a signed organ donation consent form, and it was signed by Serena. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.